Hope you enjoyed that great food. No sleeping during the programs, right? You don't know, my name is Miles Dawson. I'm the executive director with IEC. It's a pleasure to have all of you here today. We have a great program lined up. We brought in Jason Todd from DC and flew in this morning. And we also have our local library still Wiggins to talk about what's going on locally. You don't see or realize my program, the front end there, and I'm hallway. This is our 50th anniversary. So we're going to be doing some special things throughout the year. One of the big ones will be our Christmas party. will be also our 50th anniversary party. So that will be here at Laggiano. We expect about 200 people. And we'll probably sell out. So sign up early when it comes out. Our next event is going to be, like to travel a little bit, we'll be in Columbus. So I have a golf tournament coming up on June 13th. And graduation from Jewel is on June 21st. That will be, we have 550 people that attend. We have now just less than 200 seats available. So if you plan on coming to graduation, make sure you register early because we will probably sell out that event as well. Inside your program, if you take a quick peek, we have some training that's coming up, the formal training. It's coming up on May 15th and 16th. We don't bring that into the city very often, so we have some spots left, so sign up for that. That's a really great program. It's put on by our national past president from IEC, who does a fantastic job. We have sold that out in the past, so make sure you sign up for that. Again, that's the next week on 15th and 16th. And license is in prep. It is June 6th, 7th, and 8th. As well, so that kind of round out the things that we hit in the summer. We'll be slowing down a little bit for summer when you'll take vacation. We have a lot of committees. They're all due. We have the education committee, friendship and training committee, government affairs, and partnering. That's where we really get to be more involved with the IEC. And again, those are all via Zoom. We do not send out the invitations to everyone because that would be a lot of emails going out. So if you are interested in being included in one of those committee meetings, just let me know and we'll put you on your distribution list. These are 1 hour meetings on Zoom. They are very effective. It's important for staff and hear from you in terms of what you need and want from us and in the direction. Instructors, you know, we expect to grow next year for this fall actually by at least 10%, maybe 20%. Last 3 years, we've grown by 25%. We are 1,200 effective now. We expect to be 1,400 to 1,500. So we have over 40 instructors. Just like a lot of them need more electricians. We need more instructors. So if any of you are interested, contact Line of Prize or Jeff Rogers. We do have training programs to get you up to speed and also let people you know these are paid volunteer positions. We call them paid volunteers because it is in meeting 4 hours, but we are very, very supportive. We give you a lot of information, the lessons that are already done. So people know what they're doing in the field, and certainly can also be an instructor for. So that will do us instructor training, onboarding, a lot. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Mr. Jason Todd. He came in from DC this morning. He's going to give you a high-level overview of what's going on. I don't want to know what our president is going to do next. I think Jason has all the answers for you. So listen up. So he's been with the IEC for 10 years and is extremely effective marching through the halls of our capital. So Jason, come on up and let them know what's going on.
Thank you, Niall. I don't get paid enough to know who the president's thinking or what he's going to do next. I don't think anybody does. Yeah, so the current president, our new president, yeah, I don't know what he's doing, what he's thinking. It shifts with the wind, changes with the day. Tariffs, the word. So he says, so he thinks. So there's some growing pains. Obviously, you're seeing them, feeling them potentially in your operations with regards to the economy and tariffs. Yeah, I wish I had all the answers and I could I did have. So yeah, in terms of what's going on in DC, I'll go a little bit over what's taken place over the past year or so. The Biden administration, now Trump administration in place. had situations where the Biden administration really tried to upend apprenticeship and how the registered apprenticeship works and operates. He wanted to basically take regulations and requirements that are based upon denial and chapters and all those requirements. And this staff did a great job assessing how it would impact you guys, the chapters as a whole. It would basically upend it completely. Half you guys probably wouldn't be part of IEC if this actually happened, because the cost would skyrocket. So fortunately, we submitted approximately 250, 300 comments amongst across the country. IEC, total comments issued to the Department of Labor related to that, to repeat that, and that got pulled back in December. So that was a big deal, and really would be a systemic change to the organization as a whole. It would really be a problem. So we did that. Now, what's going to happen in the Trump administration remains the same. I would do that. Second, one thing, program, the idea behind that is first to try to take it out from under the Department of Labor some of the control that they have. Unions, you have their hands in the deep state, as you know, in terms of DOL. So that remains to be seen. I'll touch on something that recently transpired. Project labor agreements, not sure how many do federal contracting, down here in Georgia, managing project labor agreements aren't a thing. I'm hoping they're not a thing. To do federal contracting, you have a project labor agreement mandating or prior mandate, whereby the project was mandated to have a PLA as a condition of the deal. Be willing to sign. Now, even if you don't do federal contracting, you should be opposed to this item. It's simply because they did power and in terms of more composition of the private sector. Now, what's happened in the past basically 2 to 3 months, members of IEC and TGC specific projects that PLAs mandated. So ultimately, the court federal claims ruled on those small projects that the PLA mandate will be now. Since then, with DOD and veterans affairs have come back and said we're not going to put in the PLA now. Said PLA mandate issued by Biden is still in place. Trump has paid attention a little bit, has conducted the unions, he's made friends with the Teamsters, unfortunately. And so there's a lot of influence coming from that perspective that is not necessarily what you call typical with the Republican. So it really creates a political dynamic navigating that. A traditional Republican administration would come in and revoke that without so that's in place right now, and that really hits those federal contractors, the subcontractors, in the sense that you don't even have to say you can sign up for that. And what the PLA says, GC is the one. So we're battling the card check decision by the last administration's National Labor Relations Board. The card check, the way to basically organize the workforce, having individuals, in this case, electricians, signing a card authorizing the labor relations board to endorse the union, and either the employer recognizes the card and says, okay, I'm bargaining with the union, or I want to see the ballot. Now, the National Labor Relations Board last go around, Biden issued a decision in something called CEMEX, whereby if there's an unfair labor violation committed during the campaign for the Super Bowl election, then the election results are thrown out and the union is recognized. So it doesn't matter whether you came in and voted against the union, that doesn't matter. You have to bargain with it. We're in an amicus, we're kind of an amicus brief, publicly in favor of overturning that. We're in an amicus brief also supporting the overturning walk around rule, especially the union walk around rule. The OSHA came in again in the Biden said, okay, we're going to tweak this rule basically that anybody can join the OSHA inspector when they come to a job site. So if 2 employees say we want Joe over here because we like him doing the OSHA inspector to walk around with him, well, suddenly you've got massive liability on this. 1, 2, he could be a union assault, and suddenly it becomes that intel They could be anybody. And we've got basically liability, which you have to really put your hand, because you don't know who this person is, and, you know, if they know how to walk the jobs. So we're fighting that in court. Ocean Heat Standard, another overreach by Biden administration, they since dropped it, but it's just sitting there. They had comment period. Basically, it would overlay a heat standard on the entire country, it doesn't matter. So heat in Georgia, slightly different than say Maine or Oregon, maybe Florida. So you would have to have this complicated situation where you have to count for the heat and it's 80 and then 90. You could have workers basically be working maybe 4 hours a day because they would have to work and rest every 2 hours for 15 minutes once they got to a certain temperature. And down here in Georgia, any of your guys and gals are probably more accustomed to the heat, whereas in these other states in the Northeast, so it's a different population. You also have to have one individual on staff, and we were just talking about. Well, you'd have to one and be an expert and then go to guys. So if you got a shop with 5% people, that's a big deal. You're a bigger contractor, okay, maybe you manage, but Bob would be perfect there. But right now, that is put on ice. Overtime got shut down by the courts, and the time overreach. In fact, the Trump administration rule was $35,000 in the threshold, which kind of puts you guys in a hard spot because it went up to about 45. Then you have to adjust to that. Basically, July 1 last year, 45,000. But then you take that away from people and go back to the old number. But it is back to the old threshold. Independent contractor, another issue we're fighting. Biden administration again implemented the independent contractor, makes it harder to determine if you're an independent contractor. They want people that all have jobs. They want everybody to work for a company. They don't want an independent contractor. They don't want flexibility. In my opinion, and a lot of people, it's a union play. It's a lot easier to organize people who are all in the umbrella of one company. Like you hear the example of Uber drivers or contractors, they want them all to be getting benefits from Uber, and then they go unionize Uber. So that's just an example there. Right now, the GOL issued a memo saying they are not going to be enforcing that rule though. And we are fighting that also in the courts. Non-compete families fought in courts, real simple. Administration for the Federal Trade Commission said we're banning all non-competes. So even like your students and your apprentices, where you say, all right, you go through a 4-year apprenticeship program, the company for a year, 2 years, whatever it might be, or also pay back your tuition, whatever it might be, if you have any agreement like that, it goes away. That too, it's been struck down with the courts. I think it's gone away, I know, but I'm not 100% sure on that, but it's basically put on. Corporate Transparency Act also been put on ice by this administration, basically to do it for small business. All your beneficial ownership information would have to be turned over to the feds for national security. Now, it's already collected, it's duplicative, it just meets the privacy concerns and other than. Inflation Reduction Act is getting implemented, it's not going away. The main problem with the Inflation Reduction Act, there's lots of problems. So one of them is a PLA incentive. So you violate the Inflation Reduction Act in any major critical requirements, where you operate under a PLA, you don't have to pay a fine. So we incentivize you, again, talking about the last administration. We're only, what, 4 months, 5 months into this new administration, so a lot of these issues that mentioned tended to, just kind of things. So as fast as this administration is moving in some respects to Europe news, we feel like they should be doing things to these other issues, maybe they have a big picture. But I'm optimistic they will get most of them in our favor of that. If not, so just to on the Trump administration real quick in terms of the good and bad. Again, only in office for 5 months. As I mentioned, we kind of chose to to the Teamsters. Obviously, you saw that their president's coach at the World Convention, kind of uncommon, kind of the sort of populist notion that he's trying to tap into. I will argue that okay, that's fine on some level for pure votes and say that the rank and file of members of the unions voted for Trump or hidden tribes or inflation, those types of things. They're not voting for Trump because of the labor policy, like the hardship. Anything that helps with internationalization. They were more in favor of the that regard to people voting for Trump or they were clearly going, yes, they're in favor of the packing right. Anyway, he got rid of Jennifer Abruzzo, general counsel appointed by Biden on day one. Basically, this is following up with Biden fired Trump's old PC on day one. Both were probably illegal, but you know, can't fight city law. And then he got rid of Glenn Wilcox, who's a Democrat. That is like illegal. Maybe one court was the Supreme Court came and said, wait a second, don't move, Dr. Taft, we're going to go on this. But she's not on the board. So right now, the National Labor Relations Board has a Republican chair, but they don't have support. They can't rule on anything good or bad when it comes to policy, but they can do that. So if any of this you have questions, stop me in the middle of this, and I'll be in touch with you. They got rid of the ruling that Abruzzo effectively put in place that called capital volumes that you couldn't have. This is just salacious terms to saying you can't talk to your electricians or apprentices you work for about doing that. So as a condition to play. So for example, the staff meeting, so we're going to talk about this project, that project. I'm also going to tell you about the benefits of merit shops, as opposed to the union. Well, you expect the guys to show up. If they don't show up, you have the right to fire them. I'm not saying that you necessarily do that, but you should have the right to. It's really a free speech issue. Well, the good is the acting GC came in. So don't worry, we have this conversation, we could choose without having to worry about if we want to hire you. So some of the right now, Secretary of Labor, Lori Chavez, the Reamer, Republican with Oregon, one of three co-sponsors of the Protecting Right Organized Act, also PRO Act. It's probably you can explain how the apprenticeship bill is really about the apprenticeship bill. The PRO Act is sort of that version on the active audience policy would be in there, hard check would be in there. All these different policies up and labor law in favor. But she's the only sponsor. Now she tap danced around that, she changed the position in her nomination hearing. Now Secretary of Labor she said, well, or representing the secretary, I mean, that goes on this really, she went on ChatGPT and found it was 7 ways to explain the position. That's why she was saying this. Really, I mean, she was just so exactly sort of like, like it's like different now. But so she's not secretary now. Friends of mine that work in the department have said that she doesn't know things. She is told, I've heard that she has said that she just wants to be there. That she's not there necessarily for a lot of politics. And there's an under secretary that's getting he's Sonderling, he's cut from awards to do party administration the first time around, so he is much more friendly and able to business perspective within TLF. So this is our put back situation within the let's say from coming from the Reamer, but it's a very nice lady, but doesn't come from policy wise, one term. So then John Cawley from Missouri. He's kind of become a little bit of a maverick in terms of labor policy. He's trying to again capture them into this populist notion I referenced earlier, and the legislative part that I believe is not part of the populist notion. So he introduced the master labor contract, which basically mandates implement mandatory arbitration. when it comes to two entities that are deciding that they're going to apply. So you're not able to bargain with the union after the workforce decides they're going to unionize. After about 4 months of lawyers going back and forth, and the union basically saying we're not going to bargain, we know about the is going to come in. That's what it's. So it's basically the largest expansion of the federal government, probably in our lifetime, I think one culture. So it's his perspective that this is, reaching out to the population. There is conversations that it's his avenue of presidency potentially, like if you hear commentators say on the news that that's their lane, whatever it might be. That's a lot of good talk in Washington. That's why he's doing this. He's tapped into Bernie Moreno, Senator in Ohio, Republican freshman to be in the post-constitution bill as well. With that same feeling, I mean, he said it. The other former senator from Ohio happens to be vice president. And kind of arguing that lane from an optics perspective, whether it's practical or real. So, remains to be seen. It's not moving anywhere. It's just a really unfortunate set of circumstances when our side to be an offense rather than playing defense with everyone involved. In terms of what happened in the first 1.5 days of Trump administration, pretty standard for the administration to come in and put regulatory decrees on all the regulations that are in the work right now. Just to kind of accept what's going on with the prior administration. That's pretty standard. Trump did that. He implemented a executive order that says for every one regulation that gets proposed, that 10 have to be revoked. So that's part of the reg and vocal. It's not necessarily just regulations, it's comment letter from some guidance that don't go through the regulatory process, procedures that are a lot easier to revoke. Because it doesn't sound bad, or it's not going to be hard. It sounds still pretty good. His first administration was 2 to 1. For every one regulation, they were each agency was supposed to find new regulations for comment. One thing very specific to our industry with regards to CPD. So, the Biden administration and the infrastructure bill, we're responding to $25 billion to roll out EV charging stations throughout the country. That has been on IEC as well, that whole program. I've been working to try to develop the training standards that they impose and those requirements. And basically, so you have to go through a continuing certification program to learn how to install EV charging. And I remember when this first got proposed, we were at a meeting. It's my talked to my members, I said, do you have to do anything special to install EV charging? And I mean, just started laughing. So, a Jersey member of Congress in New Jersey, named Donald Holocaust. He's an IEW member. He got that implemented into legislation. It got to the House, and then was rejected by the Senate. Well, ultimately, the Biden administration also, that sounds good to me. Why don't we implement that through regulations? So ultimately, we either go through the union run training program, but IEC then went through, we got our own program, we got our own program through it. And now the chapter implement that. However, it's wildly unnecessary to right into this rate situation that the president is basically championing. And I've been having conversations trying to get this. But back to the tariffs. I know you want to have a lot of information on tariffs. I really just can only tell you what I know with regards to 25% on aluminum, and steel, and then they're investigating the possibility that that happened with copper. He has the reciprocal tariffs for Independence Day, was it? Liberation. Sorry, they've argued it's Liberation Day early last month. I don't know how you get that adding tariffs to every country that we trade with they somehow are trading with different countries. But anyway, of course, this since back that off, said, okay, we're gonna put that on pause for 2 months, just kind of assess the situation. Easily see that not really transpiring, the further news most likely it's slowly concluded. Issue. And a lot of companies are coming around to the line thinking that, yes, we need to find a way to not these guys. Respond in our business dealings with China, or being located there, remains to be seen what that looks like, but, the tariff situation seems to shift with the wind, or was shifting with the wind for the first 3 months. And it really is to be seen how this plays out. I think the main target is going to be China moving forward, and then maybe a few other countries maybe that we don't come to the table. They really haven't communicated actually what the end goal is with a lot of these, except to make it fairer, outside of that. So I think they're going to recognize that the economy is not going to like the tariffs on, Trinidad and Tobago. Economy not going to like you putting tariffs on many countries, that aren't significant in terms of policy, and the markets are unpredictable. I think we recognize that. Lastly, in terms of executive orders, he recently issued an executive order on workforce and put in apprenticeship. Really lacking, really more about the Department of Commerce, labor. One other agency I forgot in there, going in, assessing their situation, doing a lot of this sort of efficiency in terms of the regulatory apparatus, about encouraging more people getting into skilled trades. So it's good from a public relations standpoint. What that practically looks like right now today, I don't know. Again, a lot of this is just information. There is a head of education training administration coming in from Florida. He's coming from the same administration. Probably because he's well, so he'll be handling that. So that's a good thing to have that with back to the positive thing at the UL as opposed to the person not being there. So maybe. So in Congress, as you of course Republicans have control of both chambers there. And so that's really is complicating things for them to get legislation. But right now, the main focus we pay attention to them to do is the tax reform. They got a budget blueprint through budget resolution funding and so now the things are working on where to cut, so where to write legislation in terms of the formula code that fits into this budget framework. That basically the policies have to impact the budget to be, so they go through this reconciliation process, really complicated and wonky, but basically you can do it without Democrat. And that's what we're saying. So the Democrats didn't want to come in, the Clinton voted to Biden in the White House, the tax reform, that's how they got the TCJA through in 2017. We're in favor of having the LLC, that section 199A, what's called the pass-throughs. 20% deduction for business expenses, media expenses for business expenditures, and the other one of the other policies is making sure that the death tax or state tax is held at the same policy right now. So we've heard the news maybe that Speaker Johnson puts these lofty goals that they're going to have to spend by Memorial Day. Memorial Day is only going right. Then that means, and they'll probably say, well, I don't think anything that's realistic. I think the realistic deadline would be August, August recess. I think they can't go home to the constituents without having done something. You're home for a month. Unless you have a tariff situation, uncertainty. If Congress is able to get that done in the next 2 to 3 months, moving into August, they'll be able to be in a good spot politically, the big state, and potentially second market. You got certainty for the next 10 years, however long, in terms of that. I mentioned independent contractor workforce development. This Congress likely will get through something along the lines of forming the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act. That's legislation that reforms workforce boards in their states. It gets underserved individuals into in-demand jobs. It's a very wonky system. I don't know how you engage in the workforce system much here with the boards, but right now it's a wonky bureaucratic system. Shocking enough, some of the things that are about it. But the idea is it would make that system much more efficient and more. You might have heard during the end of last year that, Elon Musk on Twitter got into a fight saying this bill's too long. We can't get this passed. It's only 3 days for us to look at it. We can pass it. Well, 500 of those pages would be old. So that's why we owe it. This Elon. So I mentioned all those immediate briefs, all those core challenges. That comes from the Freedom Fund, of which your chapter is a generous supporter, and I appreciate that, and you guys supporting us. Without those funds, we would not be able to do all the industry we're talking about. We've also gone into Supreme Court 3 times in 3 years. The vaccine test mandate under the Biden administration, we talked about. Something called Glacier Northwest. We want to narrow with regards to unions, where basically what happened in Washington State. The Teamsters bumped off the work at a ready-mix facility in the middle of the day. And I'm pretty sure you guys are familiar with how ready-mix works. And if it doesn't get delivered, and what happens to the trucks with cement that it's just drying on the truck. Well, they bumped off work. Company wanted to sue the work damage to the equipment. Washington State Supreme Court said, well, that's protected activity with that issue back. It's a protest. That went all the way up to the Supreme Court said, no, it's not. You can sue them. Again, we'll sue what that doesn't matter. And then finally, over right, which the Chevron deference policy, you probably heard talk about the news. Ultimately, that says that the courts need to defer to the regulatory agencies that they provide expertise. We have rules and regs implemented. If they get sued for that, the courts have to defer to the regulatory body. So we fought back, and that has since been reversed by the Supreme Court. So, far be it for me to come down here and not do a sales pitch. So, really encourage you, whether you scan the QR code now, talk to Niall, email me, whatever it might be, to get involved. Help the Freedom Fund fight these fights. Ultimately, looking for Freedom Fund to the point where we can help you here locally too. So, for example, if you're fighting something at the state level, and we need more money from the coalition in this fight. Come to us at national level, say, hey, we're committing $10,000 to this fight. We can use that for 10. You come to the committee that governs that, and so sure, here you go, or no, come back with more information, or we'll give you fine. So really, it's a resource that comes back to you ultimately to help you here. So really, we're here to do that, and it helps with our back fundraising. And so our political activity, we have IEC PAC. This money goes straight to candidates that fight for the freedom, fight for their job, real job. And we have a 90% win rate as Congress. This is personal contributions from members like yourselves. And it's really critical, even though, the majorities in the House and majorities in the Senate, the strong pact, it opens doors, quite frankly. Should open and test that type of thing. It opens doors that might not otherwise get. So really encourage you to consider next time you see something from the CPAC to consider donating, large or small, everything we do. And finally, real quick, and a wonky plan. This is a requirement from the Federal Election Commission voted on for us to ask you to donate to the PAC. So if you fill out this PAC authorization form, you basically get my PAC newsletter. It's that simple. You don't have to donate to the PAC, but it's a requirement. So basically, unions implemented this back in the late 70s. They thought associations like ours, like some businesses, would be slush funds. And all of a sudden, this money would come from our members. We outraise them for that's ridiculous. That where they take money. But anyway, so basically, this is kind of a speed bump for us when it comes to fundraising. So I'm sure talks to some of you that joined at the beginning. Send me some of the PAC authorizations, and then ultimately get our newsletter and opens up the ability for us to communicate and support you. Lastly, we have policy conference, often doing some fly-in, we have a day on the bill, day at the Capitol here in Atlanta, same type of thing. This year, 23rd to 25th in Washington, D.C. Strengthen numbers. The more people that come, the more that voice is heard on the Hill. Even with the current political winds theoretically in our favor. They're not hearing from us, they're gonna be hearing from the other side. And, hearing from practitioners, hearing from actual business can go a long way, rather than myself, when I'm old, like you guys employ people, you pay taxes, we have the services, here's an example here. But I was in a meeting yesterday with the White House Business Liaison Office, and then they brought up overtime, president's no tax on overtime. I don't really give a thought. You could articulate the good or bad, better than I can. What that particular operation, I'm thinking about it as kind of perverse incentive for that election to be line bigger and better things. But I want to make more money as an electrician because the voter's not going to get taxed. Why do I want to get salary in another position? So maybe that changes the calculus for that electrician, changes the calculus and workforce situation for you. That's an example of something that you can put better spend on the time. So just to give you an example, along those lines for that kind of experience. With that, if you have any questions, my contact information is there. Kyle, members of my government affairs committee that can call me out on anything I might have said here incorrectly. But with that, appreciate you having me.
There's a lot, a lot goes on that you have no idea about. So again, I encourage you to sign up and get that information. And now we have Joel Wiggins, who we brought on this year. They've done a fantastic job for us. I'm really pleased that we made a switch about 6 months ago. He's with the Southern Group. And we got a recommendation from our chapter down in Florida to check them out, and really great guys. He knows a lot of people. He moves mountains and really have a control.
I think y'all for allowing me to come speak to you for even and I've met a lot of you guys over the past session. As novice, I'm partner with Southern Group. And we started work late last fall. Had a conversation at the final board of government affairs committee of what our priorities would be. Many of you know the governor's priority, many of you in this room priority, walk through the form or what the company called full form. Try to say that was successful endeavor and should have a immediate benefit to everyone in the room. There was a large coalition involved. IEC was instrumental in a lot of the efforts, but the real instrument that delivered this victory was Governor Rogan. So never governor engaged or initially like he did, and he absolutely he got it over the line. The other key issue that was brought to us is there in Georgia, as many of you know, there is the high-demand apprenticeship program that was established by the state, administered by technical colleges in Georgia. This is an existing program to all trades. However, there's only roughly $1 million in it. It limits the amount of scholarships for apprentices. And there needs to be more attention given how high priority that this apprenticeship is for our governor and the state. So we developed a strategy early on to start this process in earnest. And drafted a bill with our good friend Senator Clint Dixon of Buford. He introduced the bill early in the session and navigated it through the process. It was signed last month. So it is law. And what this bill does is it allows associations like the IEC to apply for that money through the state. That would allow IEC to invest for themselves, to help all of you to match you with the appropriate contractors and apprentices, and to have a more hands-on a state funded hands-on approach to the apprenticeship program. So this is just half of the battle. the appropriated amount is still $1 million to go around to everyone that can, that's being hired, all trade. So our goal, we already know what our goal is for next year, and that's to increase that amount of money. We are already, I'd like to say I get to take a vacation, but we're already starting to have those conversations, get the ball rolling, engage with our good friends at TCSG, and start talking about ways that all trades can increase their apprenticeship efforts. One of the things I've seen a lot of you guys and screening throughout the session is something we did this year. We did it after the Jason mentioned, where we had key legislators that engaged on apprenticeship issues, business issues in general, to meet with you, build relationships, and many of you, they're your legislators. And I think my final and most important point to you guys is that nobody, I know all these guys, all the legislators at the Capitol, they're my friends, we get along great, but it isn't like you talking. And I think that's ultimately the best weapon association like IEC has, is the relationship from constituent to legislature. And, it's just any opportunities that we can have to kind of engage legislators. I think that's something that I'm happy to facilitate, whether that's lunch, whether that's coffee, in your district, wherever that may be. That is really the best way to build relationships at the Capitol and ultimately achieve the goals that we're aiming for. I'll kind of stop. I know everybody's, had their dessert and getting ready to either take a nap or get on their day, but I'll take questions. It's good to see you. Thanks, John.
What? So Joel is incredibly interwoven in what's happening at Capitol. I will tell you that we were participating in activities there this year. And prior to that, I kind of saw the Capitol and that whole legislative session as an environment I didn't actually want to get myself close to. It seemed not aggressive, but there's a lot of energy. There's a lot happening. I didn't know how to navigate that. But he navigates that is that he built a place and put everyone there. And it's really impressive to see that and be a part of that. And I have a lot of confidence now to go there and to meet these representatives, even these representatives from other districts that we might not think about. All of these people are Georgians, and all of these Georgians are representing other Georgians, and they're trying to bring these issues to that state level for that 40 days of session to make things happen. So with those things in mind, Joel, I know you have your hands on the pulse of what's happening. Can you provide some predictions as to what you see coming in the year to come?
So thank you, Darren. And before I answer that question, I want to say you're a great example, and folks at this table, a great example of engaging with the legislator. While our Senate Bill 180, the bill that we had authored and sent through the legislature was in the House committee. Darren, NASA, and others have contacted their legislators in their own committee, and let them know and ask them to vote yes, and got them. And we're batting about, we're responding to it. Thank you for letting us know, and we'll vote. So, I mean, I think that just shows.
And I underscore that it was a unanimous vote when it came up, wasn't it?
It was. So thank you, and thank you for kind of illustrating how powerful it is to engage. But I think we're going into one of the most interesting sessions every 8 years. This tends to happen. The governor turns out every 8 years and creates again musical chairs here in Florida, and we don't want to see that happen. You're already seeing several key legislators announce that they're going to be running for higher office, statewide office. We anticipate the Senate in particular having a vacuum. 3 members will most likely run for the governor. Only one of Senate Appropriations Chairman Tillery has announced anticipated that approaching Kennedy will announce. at some point. There's also the anticipation that we can go. Or Jones will announce the governor, and, you know, this creates, once these things start happening. You start seeing other senators, House members from Senate seats that have been vacated. So it creates a highly political environment for the legislative session. Because of the fact that they can't fundraise during session, and as soon as they're out of session, they usually have about maybe 5 weeks, possibly 6, to campaign for a primary. So you have a supercharged session every 8 years, and we will have it. You know, I think nothing changes for us. You know, I would argue that the total form this year was a supercharged session as well. And we were able to, as Darren mentioned, almost unanimously shepherd the bill through the process and fly under the radar. It's a position I particularly enjoy operating in. I like having covered from these bigger, more big picture issues, and then we typically, with our relationships, friendships, and because it's just good common sense pro business legislation, guide our way through, and that's what we're going to be trying to do. Thank you.
What's Governor Kemp gonna do? I mean, I thought someone would ask.
Yeah, I think that probably only 2 people are really knowing the governor and first lady. But I think that, it's interesting because, he has the option that he's the chair of RGA, he's got a name from the high president, has name recognition, obviously in the state, but he's in nationwide at this point. He has a healthy fundraising record, and he has all the tools to run for a higher office if he wants to. I think he has all the tools to kind of follow the footsteps of Sonny Purdue and keeping engagements. Forward, so, kind of, it's civilian work. But I don't know, it's already not an answer question, but I think we have the option, we wouldn't be surprised if we get on our office or we get not. Here's the deal with my saying the Republicans want to go home work and all of them. So, this is my 15th legislative session. And there's obviously a lot of guys who've been down there a lot longer than that. And we can only find one other time and it would be that they have adjourned before. And for everyone's education, they adjourned around 9:15, pretended to adjourn at 9:15. While the house was still vacant bill. I was on the house side listening to him go through the speed camera bill, like very detailed, and you could tell they thought that this was about to be passed back and forth for another hour or two. The words started trickling through, it was adjourned. And it was the absolutely surprised, it was surprised, the house was surprised, all this involved. But to be fair, day 39 this year was like a typical day. The center of the always 1 o'clock. We were down there. All of the 5:30 will be back on day 39 this year. Sort of one had been out of the debate for weeks. So it wasn't, I think like key leadership priorities that were still out there. So I think there was there was one way that but there's, and I'm sure it's like this, you see, in the Georgia legislature, I think a lot of people think that bipartisan, Democrats and Republicans, there's a real rivalry between the House and the Senate, and that's a real thing. And I think that there's always going to be some run something like that happens, but by the time we get back there in January, I don't expect it to be different.
Questions?
Going on. What was achieved and going with this bill to make it. So I can see it growing, but if you know it or not, it's happening. It's growing exponentially in money, for instance, not just about contract labor, but a lot of people, for instance, that are being brought forward for what you are very best about quality for your program. A lot of things have to grow with that. And the way the high man career initiative was initially established that when we contract like me could apply for these funds. Well, I'm going to continue for the education of my apprentice anyway, already my plan. That was my intent. So we have, our company has successfully applied for this and has successfully received those dollars. But what we identified is the association, the IEC program, the IEC needs to die. Blackboard in classes cost money. Not like hands cost money. The additional instructor needed and maintaining quality instructor cost money. The association has worked very hard to make it happen. I don't really and a good steward of the association's resources. But the reality is that it's grown so much and that was in our third year we recognize this. So massive amount of so thank you. Therefore, massive thank you so much for identifying the language in the way the law is. I think the government do this. Great thing to share. You already did? Okay, excellent. Right.
Open enrollment begins on June 2nd, run through July 14th. July 10th? So you got that and more than likely, based upon past enrollment, last year we had to cut off early. So register early. There also an important announcement is if you want any of your folks to go to Kennesaw, Union City, Conyers, that enrollment only is for the July date. So the October date and the January date, those campuses are not open to enrollment, only in the fall. The fall as our 10 to 50 classes are only open and available in the fall. So if you want those type of classes, you need to register to June. And again, more than likely, the enrollment continues on the path it has, we will say, sorry.
When we reach capacity, we have to, because one thing is not to deliver the quality of the program. One thing we have all decided in front of that the quality of the program is what we care. So, you know, one of those problems, great problem to have, it's still a problem. We reach capacity. Thank you all very much for your time. I hope you include a lot of student knowledge on this. Thank you very much for both our speakers. Excellent gift to both of you. I'm part of this. But all of you have a great rest of your day to meet and